Hello, and welcome to the RPG Rundown. I'm Seth.
And I'm Jeff from Dungeons to Deep Space. We've got the systems and the stories for your table. All right, guys, if you have not heard about D&D, I don't know where you've been, but there have been big changes made in 2024, and we've got the scoop. From revamped classes to game-changing mechanics, today we're going to be breaking down our top 5 favorite changes that have been made in D&D 2024. And I think Seth and I have both agreed that number 5 is what we are most excited about.
I
Now,
think so.
let's go ahead and dive in. Seth, you want to go and tell them what we have coming up?
Yeah, before we get started in that, just kind of wanted to give an update. Obviously, you all know how excited we are for the Cosmere RPG. And as of right now, there's still 8 days left on the Kickstarter as of time of recording. So it'll be less, like 4 days less by the time this comes out. But it's at $8.9 million,
It's a little bit of money.
which is crazy. Also, I need to scrounge up some money so that I can maybe get more things.
Right.
But that's not the big announcement. The big announcement is that we of the RPG Rundown are going to be doing a one-shot in the Cosmere RPG with some very special guests. We are going to be joined by Matt Bivens from the Pocket Dimension podcast, as well as another prominent member of their community, Seth. Seth of All Trades is his new brand. It used to be Seth the GM.
Ooh, okay. Nice.
And so the two of them are going to be joining us, along with a couple familiar faces. And so I'm going to be GMing the game, and we are going to dive into the adventure that they have along with the beta rules. I'm so excited. We're definitely going to be recording it and having it posted to the YouTube after this episode airs.
Yeah.
Within a few days.
Yeah.
So look for that, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited.
So, but let's go ahead and jump into today's discussion, which are our top 5 D&D 2024 rules changes. So yeah, let's dive into that. Jeff, what is our number 1?
Number 1, I think, is going to be character design, right? One of my favorite parts, and I know a lot of the community's favorite parts of TTRPGs, is simply creating the character. Like, what do you want to play? Do you want to play, a monk, a barbarian, a wizard, a cleric, right? Like, there's all these different things. And in D&D 2024, they've actually changed up a lot of the character design, and I actually think that it has made an improvement. So as you're kind of working your way down, building your character, one of the things you do is you actually go backwards in your design of your character. So you start with your class, right? Am I going to play, again, barbarian, wizard, cleric, right? You start with your class, and then you kind of work backwards into what they're calling the origin, which the origin is the compilation of your background and what is now called your species. It's no longer race, now it's your species. And then actually background plays a really big role now, whereas I don't know that it really played a huge role in the previous edition, right? Like I feel like I say previous edition, that's not the correct terminology. This is not technically a new
The
edition.
2014 rules.
It is a revamp of the 5e rules. So it's still 5e, like asterisk. I don't know, right? So
Yeah.
but. I do feel like background plays a much bigger role for me. Background was always kind of an afterthought. I just kind of chalked on whatever background I thought fit what I wanted my character to be.
I think it was more
And
important for people who were interested in role playing.
yeah,
It definitely came
for
into
sure.
that aspect. But as far as the mechanics of your class,
Hmm.
it didn't always add to it, although some did. And
Right.
so that's why people
Some
would
absolutely did.
always choose, one of these high
Right.
profile backgrounds because maybe it gives them something special,
Hmm.
not, a certain terrain type that they didn't have to, whatever. It was almost feat light,
Hmm.
but it wasn't quite a feat.
Right. Yes. And so I think that some of the things that have been corrected with backgrounds now is now your ability scores, your ability scores you get to add on come from your background, not from your species. And so with your depending on your background, you'll get 3 score improvements. You can do 2 in one ability score or 1 in the other, or you can do 1 ability point in 3 different, and that's all based on what background that you take. The Wayfarer, for example, it has here, will let you put a point in dexterity, wisdom, or charisma. You know, on top of that, with the background, you also get something called an origin feat, which I know Seth, you're going to talk about in just a moment, so I won't go any further into that. But your background also comes with a feat of its own. Your skill proficiencies, your tool proficiencies, and your equipment all come now from your background. Whereas now, when you look at your race, or what is now called your species, you no longer get those things that you got before, but now you actually get like mechanics that would be passed down from your species. For instance, a dragonborn's breath weapon is passed on through his species. A dwarf's toughness and their dark vision, that comes from the being a dwarf, right? A human, you get, resourceful, skillful, versatile. I actually feel like it's relatively balanced. I will say I've heard a little bit of complaint that there's no halves, no half elf, half orc or
Half
anything like
orc,
that
yeah.
at the moment. I don't know if that'll be added in or if you just
I don't
role
think
play
so.
play with it.
They were pretty adamant in some of their discussions about taking those out.
Mm.
I
Okay.
don't necessarily agree with the reasoning for it, but you
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
uh, I think that yeah, everyone who's playing, obviously, TTRPGs are a way that we can do whatever we want
yeah,
in
exactly.
storytelling and in gaming, and so I think that everyone will still be able to do this, and then you can pick. Depending on what your GM allows, you could have 2 species, you know, uh, bonuses or not, or choose
Right.
one
Yeah,
of them.
pick and choose. I kind of like that. And this thing, it's your table. You do it how you want. And so I
Exactly.
could definitely see doing that. I mean, I would like to see, I don't know, something more built and streamlined for different half races or half species that aren't just human adaptations. Like, why can't I have an elf dwarf or something? Like,
Well,
sure,
I
okay,
mean,
lore
that's
wise, that might
not
be a problem.
acceptable.
All right,
No.
it was just 2
Uh,
random
but
species
yeah,
that
I
came
mean,
to my
like
mind.
an elf dragonborn or
Yeah, yeah,
dwarf,
exactly.
a dwarf orc. Sure, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I'd like to see more of that, and maybe someone has like a homebrew system out there to add that on. But as
We do
far as the
like
character
homebrew
design that I wanted to
systems.
cover, what's that?
Oh, sorry. I said we do like homebrew systems.
We love homebrew systems, yeah. But as far as the character design, I wanted to talk about. That's really it. I wanted to really talk about the difference now with background, with that being where you get your ability scores, you get your origin feat, and then with your species and how you get your species advantages or whatever comes with it. But then that kind of brings us into the feat system, which has changed a little bit. Seth, you want to tell us about that? I know it's your number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we have kind of what you think of as your normal feats that are in D&D. And many of those are still there, but they have now origin feats, which are level 1 feats. And they are tied to kind of character creation, if you will, as well. And so I've got a list of them. This I don't think this may not be all of them, but it's a good smattering of them. There's a couple of them like the tough feat, which is very familiar to a lot of you out there, and it hasn't really changed much. There's one that's like for crafting, definitely more on the RP side as far as how relevant it is. It's definitely not relevant to combat or anything. It does give you like discounts on materials when you're buying stuff to craft. But as one reviewer that I saw put it, that really probably will only matter in the early levels because later on, generally, players start to earn more money than they can know what to do with, unless they're
Right.
just buying giant magic items. So there's a couple like that, and then I kind of want to give just a brief snippet on a few of them and talk about a couple of them. Savage Attacker gives advantage on damage rolls once per turn, which is pretty cool. So, obviously the higher you get, if you're doing more than one attack, per turn, obviously you can only do it once. But it's a feat that kind of gives that extra damage, which is pretty nice. Skilled is one that allows you to gain 3 skill proficiencies. And that is repeatable too. So you can actually take it again. Depending on if you have something that allows you to take another feat or whatever. But yeah, 3 extra skill proficiencies. That could be pretty big. Tavern Brawler, I think is going to be really fun for martial classes, especially like monks. But also just anyone who wants to RP that their character likes to, get into some scuffles. It basically increases the damage you can do with unarmed strikes. It's not going to be massive, but rather than doing like 1 point of damage every turn, you actually get to do like a D4 plus your proficiency. You also get to re-roll some damage rolls, and then also there's some new rules for improvised weapons. Lucky is another one, and while I like all of the origin feats in general, Lucky actually has gotten worse.
Right, yeah.
Because you can no longer wait to find out what the roll is. If you're playing rules as written, you can no longer wait to find out what the results of the roll and then choose to use your Lucky reroll. You basically have to choose to do it beforehand. I don't know. Okay. I don't like that. I feel like that's almost defeats the purpose, but
yeah, I kind of feel like it does.
I mean, it's almost like rolling with advantage for whatever it is, but
yeah, that's essentially what it is. Then
there's a Magic Initiate, and it's kind of broken down. There's like Cleric, Druid, and Wizard as kind of the options for it, and so each one kind of is a little bit different, but they give you some extra cantrips, extra spells, and so especially if you wanted to have spells or cantrips from a different class, than what you are, you could maybe take that and have, some extra stuff there, which is pretty cool. Healer is really cool, and I really like it for non-magic using classes because of Battle Medic. And what Battle Medic lets you do is basically, as a utility action, you can go up to a player and use, a party member, and use a healer's kit to allow them to roll a hit die, and then add your proficiency bonus to their roll and let them heal with that.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then there's also some like healing rerolls that it allows as well.
Right.
But I mean, you could be carrying around 100 healer kits, and hey, party's out of spell slots, no big deal. I'm gonna run around and I'm gonna heal somebody.
Without spell slots.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though it's not very big. Yeah, even though it's not very big. Or if you have a cleric, like a certain blue tiefling in a popular online show, that doesn't heal. So that's great. Alert is also a really good one. Basically gives you initiative plus your proficiency bonus, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you can swap initiative with an ally.
Ooh, that's nice.
So, the cleric rolled really high on their initiative, but they don't want to go first. I want to go first because I'm the barbarian. You can swap.
Right.
So, that's really good. And then, lastly, for the ones I'm going to highlight is musician. And it's awesome because basically after any rest, you get to, if you're a musician, you play your instrument, you sing a song, whatever, and then you give out heroic inspiration to,
nice.
Up to as many party members as your proficiency bonus.
Nice.
That's awesome. So yeah, those are some really fun origin feats
Yeah.
that I think will help out immensely at the level 1 play.
Hmm.
Because early game, level 1, 2, and 3 so often is so swingy as far as
Yeah.
like you've got somebody like a paladin who's super powerful, and then you have someone like a cleric or a mage who has a hard time,
Right.
martial classes especially. I feel like at level 1
Hmm.
have such a hard time, and so having these origin feats, I
Right.
think, will make that early game play a lot more dynamic and fun for sure.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, because I think for the most part, if you were building a character before, the question is always like, do I go with a variable human? Because I want that feat at first level, and
Right.
so that was everyone played humans, but now like humans kind of been nerfed on that because you no longer have that. Now that humans get plenty of stuff, like I feel like when you
Yeah.
look at the species traits, humans get a lot. In fact, they start each day with heroic inspiration, which is basically the new replacement for just inspiration. Gives you advantage on a dice roll. I
Because
think it's technically a full re-roll is how it changed, but yeah. So now every species will have the option to take a feat as it's
yeah.
part of the background.
Well,
I think
and
that's
as
cool.
far as kind of going back to your first, the first thing we're talking about is character design.
Hmm.
When they announced the disassociating ability scores with species,
Hmm.
I wasn't sure that I really liked it, and I still kind of have mixed feelings on it
I,
because
I
it
I agree.
takes away some of the uniqueness of the species.
Hmm.
Thankfully, they still have the species traits, because then if they
Yes,
just
that's nice.
took it away completely, then to me it's too much of, oh, we all need to be the same,
Yeah.
and then then it's just flavor. And
Hmm.
I do like the rules telling me, oh, you know, you have to be a dwarf to get that dwarf trait, or you have to
Hmm.
be an elf to get that elf trait. I like that
Hmm.
because it makes you choose
Right.
between some of those things.
Yeah.
And so I was a little hesitant on that, but
I agree. And I mean, I still struggle to believe that you could build a gnome that has, like 19 strength and then build a Goliath that has like 8, like
I,
species
you
wise, you're
know,
looking at these two creatures. One should not
there's
be
gonna
stronger than
be
the other.
there's gonna be some extreme variations, I'm sure,
Hmm.
but I think it'll be okay.
But now I
At the
really
end of
want
the
to build
day,
a duo that's like a gnome with 19 strength and then like a Goliath,
a
like
Goliath with
sorcerer, and then it's like big and little, but they're reverse. Like big is the gnome and little's the Goliath.
I think of it like a Goliath that's like super skinny and almost emaciated, you
Yeah,
know,
very true.
but he's super tall, like
Yeah.
ramrod tall.
Hmm.
And then you've got like the gnome or somebody that's just like just a
Just
ball of
absolutely
muscle,
ripped.
right?
Yeah.
So no, that'd be funny.
I mean, I like the freedom to do that
Yeah,
because I think it would be fun in game and you could have some really cool interactions with that. But I still
absolutely,
struggle to see it. But I do like that it's that you have that freedom. After all, it is
absolutely,
fantasy.
it is.
Hmm.
Well, let's move on to the next one, and I actually we have a visual for this. So if you're listening to the audio
Visual.
podcast, check us out on YouTube.
Hmm.
YouTube.com/ at the RPG Rundown LTN. It's our new channel, by the way.
Yes.
So if you're following us on the old one, or if you weren't following us at all, give us a like and a subscribe. We'd appreciate it.
Hmm.
But let's check out the character sheet, right?
Yeah. And so this is one that I really haven't heard anyone else talking about. But as I was looking through some of the stuff I'd found in the book, like the character sheet was there, and I'm like, oh wow, it's changed quite a bit. And as I looked over it, I was like, I really think I like the way that the character
Yeah,
sheet looks and operates a little bit better. And so
I
like
do too.
if you look at the visual, yeah. So if you look at the visual, like I feel like the layout's very good. This would be obviously like front and back. And I like that on the left side you have your ability scores there, and I like that they finally answered the question which number's bigger. The modifier is bigger, and then the score is smaller. They wrote it there for us. And so you have
Yes.
Yeah, so you have those all there, and then underneath those you have the actual skills. And so your skills, like your under intelligence, is your Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature. It's better than looking at a huge skill tree of list of like, okay, that's the one I'm looking for.
Well, and we've seen this in a lot of other TTRPGs where
Right,
all of the skills that are associated with intelligence are listed with the
right there,
intelligence.
under it. Yep.
And so, no, I think this is a great change,
hmm
honestly.
Yeah, and
Um,
then the layout, you have your weapons and your damage cantrips. I think that, and then you have class features. Then you have an actual place for your species traits and a place for your feats, and you kind of write all that in there. I don't know, just kind of looking over it, I liked the layout of this better than the previous character sheet, and I feel like for a new player, it's going to be a little bit easier to manage.
I think there's more room
Yeah, I feel
for
like that too.
on the right side for all
hmm
the things that you have to write in, like the weapons and weapons and damage cantrips. You could run out of room really fast on that.
hmm
However, so to me, especially as you get higher in levels, that may just be weapons, because you've got like 5 weapons in your bag that you've been
Right.
carrying around from your adventuring.
Yeah.
So that's or 6 weapons, I guess, is what it has room for. But then the class features, I like that it's not lines, and if you actually look at it on the record sheet, it's like a really small kind of dotted grid to help
Oh, okay,
people.
really?
Yes, to help people actually write straight across, but
Yeah.
without limiting you to being like, oh, I'm gonna have to write on these lines and only have 6 class features.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So, but no, I think that it opens up the character
hmm
sheet a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's some
yeah,
things on here I didn't necessarily know if they were on the other character sheet, but I love that you have like a checkbox for heroic inspiration to kind of remind you if you have inspiration or not, because we're all guilty of forgetting that.
also the
Um,
shield has a
yeah,
checkbox.
the shield has a checkbox, absolutely, and then over under your equipment, there's actually 3 slots for magic item attunement. So if you have something attuned, you could put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love up under background, they also they don't know how to spell soldier either, so we're not alone in that, and it's great. I just noticed that as we pulled it up.
Solitaire. That's funny.
Solitaire.
This is straight
Yeah, this was from
from
D&D
D and
Beyond
D
too, so
Beyond.
okay, so I'm
So
not making fun of someone else. We all make those mistakes.
yeah,
But yeah,
but
no,
I
I
do
don't know. I
like
hadn't heard
this.
anyone else really talking about it, but the character sheet has changed, and
hmm
I don't know. I really like it.
I like the second page as well. I think it's just
hmm
cleaned up. I think
Yep.
that it has. I like that it's not just the list of spells and cantrips,
hmm
but that it
Right.
has the check boxes for if it's concentration, if it's ritual,
Yeah, that's great.
um, or requires material. But then
hmm
also you've got your spellcast a box at the top for your spell
hmm
casting abilities. So that
Yeah,
way you don't have to flip back over to the first page to remember what it is that you've got to roll.
right. That's great.
Um,
It's all right there.
yeah, and then also the spell slot
The spell
marks as
slots that are
well
right there
are
are
pretty
perfect. Yeah.
fantastic. There's the appearance box is a lot smaller, which I think is fine because I think they had given previously a lot larger of a box
Right.
because I think they expected you to put a picture in it,
hmm
um,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
fair.
fine, but it's not something that we do really all the
hmm
time, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would say most people probably
and it's not
don't.
necessarily needed on the character sheet.
hmm
But yeah, so there's that, and then again with the equipment and everything, and then the breakdown of coins too was
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I
pretty
mean,
nice.
overall, like I'm not currently comparing it to like other character sheets we've worked with because we've test played a lot of other games. But as far
Yeah,
as the other 5e character sheet goes, I do prefer this one.
yeah, yeah. I do too. And so yeah, I do like that it has this. Also, too, it's gonna in the weapons section. It does have the extra room for weapon mastery, which we'll get to
Oh,
at the end.
at the end. Yep, exactly. So
So
as we move on, I guess to the next to the end, you had one that you wanted to talk about.
yeah,
Bastion.
absolutely. So this is something that I think a lot of parties have as a goal, maybe not always, but it's the Bastion system, or bastions, meaning, your home, your castle, your fortress, your secret lair, whatever it is. But they finally kind of have put in better and expanded rules for creating that bastion. And part of what they did was they wanted to make it more meaningful for player housing that impacts the campaign.
Okay.
And so I
like
think it's
that.
going to be, like when we played our previous campaign, Jeff, after we finished the first arc, basically you guys got your bastion. You got
Yeah, we
your
did.
home. It was it was the dungeon that you cleared out in the first adventure.
Hmm.
And you started customizing it and kind of doing what they have done here, is you kind of started making specializations. And so that's one of the things, that there's rules and mechanics for special facilities in your bastion that can provide buffs that to your party, that can help. You can give orders to people who are working in your bastion. You can also have them try to procure or order items or materials for you. And then there's also special facilities for crafting bonuses, or for all sorts of different things. You can even, like, a library for research, or a forge for crafting. So that's pretty cool. You can even have one. There's mechanics for having someone revive back at the bastion, basically.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So like, we got to get back to the bastion because so and so died. Let's get back and do that.
Okay.
So that's really cool. And then another fun aspect of this that I really like are the kind of like random bastion encounters. And I like that it's not just combat, like, our fortress is being attacked. It's also social. So it's like, some special VIP showed up at your bastion, and they added they did something that gave a boost to your party, or whatever. So I like what they have added in with this, because in our previous campaign that was a lot of fun, and that was always fun to go home, because then it also made like some of those downtime sessions not as, well, I'm just searching through the town trying to find what I want. Let me roll to see if I can find the right thing. Or like our friend who played Theoden the dwarf was always looking for adamantine.
Right.
Yes. You could have your bastion employees be on like this great hunt for adamantine, or something, and try to
cool.
maybe they come back with it one time. So
Right.
Anyway, I think that's fun. I think it's exciting,
really cool.
And I look forward to that. So
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So going into number 5, what I think we're both really excited for, I think this is a really cool system, is weapon mastery properties. And so what weapon mastery properties are is that, new weapons, at least for martial classes, different classes will have a certain amount of weapon mastery properties. And so some weapons will have a property that do a few different things. We're going to go through some that we really liked here in just a moment. For example, the one that I really liked, I thought cleave was really cool. And so I'm always that player that I either like to play like the cleric that helps people, or the barbarian that just like cuts people in half. And so with cleave, you have a heavy weapon, assuming you have a martial character that has a proficiency with the weapon mastery property. It's a lot of words. Assuming you have that, with cleave, you can slash through opponents. So what this means is that if you hit a character with your melee weapon attack, then you can make a second weapon attack on a character within 5 feet of you, and it will then take the damage without the modifier. So you can hit basically cleave through one into another. And so if I were to like kind of picture this in my head, I would think of, I have a barbarian with this massive great axe, and I position myself perfectly within the heat of battle. And with one powerful swing, I slice, through the opponent directly in front of me, and then I also hit the threat that's closing in on my cleric, protecting my party with just this raw, unstoppable force. I don't know. I love the feel of this. I think there's a lot of really cool RP, but also a lot of like mechanical advantage that comes along with doing something like cleave as one of the weapon mastery properties. So,
Yeah,
Seth,
it
what's
makes it
another one you
more
liked?
well, and it makes it more cinematic, right? I think that's what
Oh
part of
yeah.
the part of all of these are doing is one, making martial weapons more cinematic, which
Hmm.
we've had with spells and spellcasters for a long time. This
Oh
big
yeah,
cinematic
absolutely.
experience of casting a fireball, and then you're like, well, I swing my sword, and I do
True.
damage, and then you're like, no, now I cleave through, kind of thing, right? So I think these are fantastic additions,
Hmm.
and so it definitely adds it to martial classes. The next one that we have is push, and so this is one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, like I've got a big hammer or a maul or something, and I'm going to like swing it and hit an enemy, and I can actually push them, up to 10 feet away,
Hmm.
or push them off a cliff or something. Now,
Yeah.
that's with as long as it's like your size or smaller, I think is what it matters, and
Hmm.
so you're not going to be able to push like a dragon or a giant
Hmm.
monster, 10 feet. But anything that's, I think probably your size or smaller, you're going to be able to push them, and there's no save for that. They don't get to
Yeah.
save. You just get to push them away. And
Which is
again,
kind of insane.
it is, but it's also, it gives
Hmm.
martial classes who can unlock this the
Hmm.
ability to displace in such a way that,
Oh yeah.
again, even at level
Oh, I
1
definitely
and
get that. But
2,
then it's like there's no save, which means I position myself the right way and I push the big bad off a cliff.
yeah, off the
Like
cliff.
nothing they can do about it.
Probably not the big bad, I mean, like,
Yeah.
unless the big bad is human sized, and
Yeah.
but
Well,
I
I
don't
think it's
know,
like large or smaller is what it says. And so it's like, I mean, yeah, sure, not the big dragon or anything, but
right,
if you're
right.
fighting a sorcerer or something like that, just poof.
Absolutely. I mean, like, there's obviously, like I said, there might be um some monsters that prevent that, like, oh,
Hmm.
maybe they have rules like they can't be pushed or displaced or something.
Right. Or your
Um,
big bad suddenly learns Misty Step, I don't know.
right, right.
You're the DM.
Exactly, exactly. But no, I do like that. I think it can make encounters way more fun and
Hmm.
swingy, in the sense of, you're right, you could absolutely push somebody off.
Hmm.
They could maybe also push you off. Probably not.
True.
I think mastery isn't going to be used so much by NPCs, DMs, but you never know. Let's see. What's the next one we have here?
Oh yeah, so the next one I was looking at is SAP, and so this is one from just like a support standpoint, I think is really, really cool. And so SAP, essentially what it allows you to do is when you hit someone with your weapon, you can inflict disadvantage on their next attack roll. And so the way that I kind of pictured this in my head is like, say you're playing a paladin, right? You're the team shield, ready to protect your allies at whatever cost there is. You have your long sword in hand, which is one of the weapons that has sap. You charge straight for the biggest threat on the battlefield, and you just hit him. And every time you hit him, you sap his strength and forcing his next attack to be at disadvantage, whether that's against you or your cleric or whoever else. Like, you're forcing them to now strike with disadvantage on every one of their strikes as long as you keep hitting them. I just think from like a support standpoint, that one is going to be really, really cool. There's other weapons like
Yeah.
Warpick. I think kind of brought some viability back to Warpick with giving it sap. And Longsword, of course, I think is really cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
so sap is another really cool one.
And I think that all of these, again, at level 1, add to uh, the cinematic experience,
Hmm.
even so early in the game. So, kind of the opposite of that is Vex.
Hmm.
And what Vex does is it gives you advantage on your next attack. And I like they talked about like a rogue who has two weapons, has like a light crossbow in one hand and a dagger in the other. You can actually shoot them with the light crossbow, get Vex off of it, and then you can it basically, because it grants advantage, it gives you like sneak attack damage.
Yeah, sneak
Like, you
attack
can basically
damage.
use sneak attack, because sneak
Oh,
attack is if you get advantage on then you get to do that. So there's some really cool combos with Vex. But like I said, it's kind of the opposite. As opposed to giving your enemy disadvantage, it gives you advantage. And so I think that's really cool. And then kind of the last one, this is something that we saw recently in our Cosmere RPG demo test, but a little bit different. And so I wanted to make sure to highlight this, and that is Graze. In Cosmere, I think it was a glancing blow. But essentially, it allows you to still do damage if you miss with a weapon. And this is every time it misses. This isn't a once per turn. It's every time it misses. And so the difference is with Graze, you basically do the damage bonus from your weapon. So if it's like 1d10 plus 4, you get to do plus 4 damage when you miss. The difference with the other system in Cosmere was that instead of doing the plus 4 damage, you basically just got your straight damage die roll, which could be a lot, could be full 10 points, or it could be 1 point or 2 points.
Right.
So that's I just like that as a mechanic, because it helps, especially those martial classes who don't have a follow-up spell to do with their attack. It helps them still have fun even if they maybe fail. Like they still feel like they're contributing. So yeah, I think that's great. And these are just some of them. There's a handful more of them, but the weapon masteries are pretty great. So
yeah, they're pretty, and I think it's anything to break the monotonous. What do you do? Oh, I swing my sword. Right, like it gives you something a little bit to be more excited about. Like I think you're right. Spellcasters for a long time have had the, what spell am I going to cast? How am I going to use this ability? And so it really kind of favors spellcasters. But now with these abilities, it gives you the option to, no, you know what? I want to push. And so you also can have, like I know fighter is one that they've talked about. A fighter can switch weapons and then use the mastery of the second weapon. So it's like, okay, right now I'm going to use this weapon that gives me Vex, and then next I'm going to use like my push weapon so that I get to roll with advantage and then push him wherever I want him to go. Like you can kind of think through how you're going to do that, which I guess you could do that with an action surge too. You could Vex,
absolutely
switch weapons, then
and these
hit with your push
and if
weapon.
we didn't mention it, these weapon masteries are unlocked through certain martial classes, and so the classes will have different limits on how many they have and what weapons maybe they can use in order to gain these weapon masteries. So it also makes the martial classes different as well. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I like that. But there's our 5 things. If you liked them, tell us which one of these 5 you really liked, and then if there's something else that you like that in the upcoming 2024 rules for Dungeons and Dragons, please let us know in the comments, and we'd be happy to talk about it. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, once again, character design, origin feats, the new character sheet, bastions, and weapon masteries were our top 5. So appreciate it. The changes and look forward to testing those out.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too.
All right. Well, let's move on. Since we're not reviewing a system today, we're not going to use our critical system. We're not going to take a critical look at something.
Because it's not a full review. We're just looking at some stuff we liked. Yeah,
there's so much in here that we kind of have to talk about it differently. But, but we have more coming. Like we said, we have a new one-shot coming that we're excited for. And then also, too, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we do have a new YouTube channel. And so if you haven't noticed, we're not solely under the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel anymore. We actually have our own channel underneath them that is youtube.com/@therpgrundownltn. So be sure to go give us a subscribe there and a like. Give us a comment on this video. Tell us what you liked about it, what you didn't like, what we could do better. All of those are welcome. And so yeah, we're trying to grow that back up now. So just because we want to get that, we will also put all of our former actual plays from our rap channel over here.
From a rap channel.
We just haven't done that yet, but we will. So
I feel like we need a playlist on this channel still just called rap. Run down actual plays.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, we can't let the rap die.
We can name the playlist whatever we want. So
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for today.
Absolutely.
We are excited to continue exploring the D&D 2024 rules, as well as all of our other systems and homebrews and third parties that we come to. So, again, thank you for joining us. Please come back and join the conversation with us. Engage us on social media. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok as well, and we'll have some more content coming there as well.
Very soon.
But from our table to yours, thanks for joining the RPG Rundown.
And until next time, may your rolls be epic and your stories legendary.